Welcome, everyone, to Couch Potato Diary. Happy Wednesday. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for tuning in today. As always, this show presented by Sea of Dead. Check out seaofdead403.ca. Some awesome Calgary swag, supporting a local Calgary company as we continue to grow that. These shows are always fueled by Swift Energy. Check out swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PKPrimetime for 25% off. If you're watching on YouTube, you saw the graphic before. This was actually streamed live a day ago over on twitch.tv/primetimepk. We do all the shows over there early, and then you guys get them in podcast form or on YouTube. So if you want to be a part of the conversations, kind of guide where these shows go, ask your questions, you can do that in the chat over on twitch.tv/primetimepk. But let's begin now with the National Football League, as it is now time for the divisional round, and it's playoffs. Anything can happen, especially in one game. But this week, the underdogs are pretty intriguing. Let's break down how each team who's an underdog can pull off the upset in the divisional round. Vegas has had their say on how they think these games are going to go, but we have seen upsets in the past. So who has the best chance of pulling off an upset this weekend in the NFL playoffs? Let's take a look. Let's run through the schedule here. Texans are 8-point underdogs against the Kansas City Chiefs. How can they pull off the upset, shock the world, and knock out the two-time defending champions at Arrowhead on Saturday afternoon? I do think that for facing such an uphill climb and for being a over-touchdown underdog, there is, I think, kind of a clear path to this. It's that the issues we thought Kansas City's offense had all season long that were just going to figure themselves out when it comes playoff time don't figure themselves out. And this Texans offense that seems like it figured it out last week stays figuring it out. And they turn this into a bit of a shootout a little bit with an offense that just hasn't shown that they can do that all season long. That does feel a little bit like walking right into the Lions' den. But I think that's how you beat Kansas City this year. I don't think it is by, well, let's just try to dribble out the clock and whatever. I think you go at them. And I think that you hope that this franchise quarterback you have in CJ Stroud and this great performance you had a week ago against a good defense can do it again against a great one, and hope that your defense can hold up against maybe the most talented quarterback in the history of the sport, but with an aging tight end as his number one option. I think that is like that's honestly a pretty clear way to an upset happening. It's that Kansas City just isn't who we thought they were, and the Texans have an ability to take advantage of that and really expose this team as, instead of one lying in wait, they were just kind of lying dead the whole time. Washington taking on Detroit. The Commanders are favored. Commanders are underdogs by 9.5 points. And again, this one, it's not as easy a path because Detroit's offense is scary good, and they have just been putting teams in the dirt this season. But for Washington, it's you score on every possession. You take advantage of a Detroit defense that looked maybe a little bit better than it should have because Sam Darnold, I think we saw, has turned back into a pumpkin. But the pass rush isn't there, and they're banged up in the secondary, so you're able to take advantage of that, pick up some big opportunities, and basically, like I said, you score on every possession, you turn this into a shootout, and you hope that your rookie, who doesn't seem to be fazed by anything, continues that and gets a victory over the Detroit Lions. I think that is the way you go, is that you just exploit this Lions defense that a lot of us feel is exploitable. Rams taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Rams are 6-point underdogs, and again, I think that this one, honestly, I think all three of these are a little long, in my opinion. I think that the Rams have shown that they are a dynamic offensive team with a defense that's good enough. And the Eagles have shown that, again, that this offense just doesn't put anyone away. And I get like late they really piled it on against a very injured Green Bay team. So yeah, if the Rams get 9 injuries in this game, it's probably going to be tough for them. But I do think that the Rams, with what they can do running the ball, with Matthew Stafford at quarterback and Kupp and Nakua attacking that secondary, it's a great Philadelphia defense. Your hope is that they can squeak through enough points and you kind of just make Hurts beat you and do something that he hasn't really shown to be all that capable of this season. Obviously, a run to the Super Bowl in the past, but again, this offense just doesn't go that full way of putting teams away. So I think you kind of hope to hang around, and where Green Bay made it a one-possession game in their game before the Eagles pulled away, the Rams make it a one-possession game and then stay there, and Stafford and them are able to strike with a final touchdown late. And then Buffalo are actually underdogs against Baltimore. And so, this one, Josh Allen becomes the MVP and wins a football game. I don't really trust either defense, so I think that this is going to be a big-time shootout. And so what you are hoping is that your guy, Josh Allen, is better equipped for that. Baltimore, we said yesterday that they are a team that can really run the score up on you, right? But so is Buffalo. And they've been in shootouts like this before, and they've won shootouts like this before. And you have a quarterback who is probably the best in the league, at that type of scenario this year, in Josh Allen, with the weapons that they have, with James Cook being able to run the ball out of the backfield. I just feel like if Buffalo is going to pull off the small upset here, it is just going to be because Josh Allen is better suited for this type of a game than Baltimore and all of them, and how they are going to be looking at this one. They're going to need to at least limit the run in better ways than they have in the past. But their way to pull off the upset in this game is, again, all of these, or at least 3 of the 4, turn it into a bit of a shootout, and your guy's better equipped for that. So I think we could get a few upsets this week in the NFL, as I think we are setting up for what should be a pretty fun divisional round in the National Football League after a not great wild card weekend. So that is the rest of the story from the NFL. Let's go to the UFC. Again, it is a UFC pay-per-view week, and so with those, we got a big focus on the MMA world. And so while, yes, a lot of that should be on the 2 title fights, Makhachev against Sarukian in their rematch, and Nurmagomedov against Merab Dvalishvili, it's also a good time to take a look at what's all going on in the sport right now. So let's take a look at what the next little bit has in store for the Ultimate Fighting Championship as we continue on here with some of our fight talk. UFC 311 going down this weekend, and while the focus of the MMA world is certainly on this event, there is a lot of intriguing things coming up on the UFC calendar in the first part of the year. So let's run through it. We have this big fight card here this weekend with a couple title fights, and then we have a fight night card. And normally with the UFC, fight night cards have been a little bit skippable, but this one is Riyadh season, which we have seen is kind of a big deal in the fight game now. And so you have actually a very intriguing card coming up next weekend for the UFC. Next weekend or a couple weekends from now? February 1st. So we got a couple of weekends off before we get to this one. And then February 1st is loaded up. People know when the Super Bowl is and isn't, and they're trying to take advantage of that. But main event, it is Israel Adesanya against Nasruddin Imavov, a huge fight for Adesanya. If he wants to have any hope of working his way back into any kind of a title fight, he needs a victory in that bout. You have Shara Magomedov, Shara Bullet, back in action in what is a significant step up in competition against MVP, Michael Venom Page, who came into the company with a lot of fanfare, picked up a big win, but it's leveled off a little bit. So, interesting prospect type matchup in the middleweight division there. Jasmine Jasdavicius, the Canadian, she's had a pretty good run, if I'm not mistaken here. 35 years old, out of Ontario. Yeah, she's won 3 fights in a row and has won 5 of her last 6. So she is kind of pushing towards title opportunity, taking on Mayra Bueno Silva, who it always just feels like she's kind of hanging around the tops of the flyweight division. But she has stumbled a little bit. Lost the title fight. Lost most recently to Macy Chiasson, so big opportunity for her, coming up there. You also have Jairzinho Rozenstruik fighting on this card against Sergey Pavlovich. Said Nurmagomedov is also in action on the undercard, so a stacked fight night card coming up in the first part of February. And then just a week after that, it is Dricus du Plessis taking on Sean Strickland, and Zhang Weili taking on Tatiana Suarez in the women's strawweight division. So another 2 championship main card, for a pay-per-view, and that one happening over in Sydney, Australia. So you got Justin Taffa and Jimmy Crute fighting on that one as well. So not a loaded run for the UFC, like we have been used to seeing a little bit, as they kind of have spaced some things out with football happening and all of that. And this is kind of the pace you like to see with the Ultimate Fighting Championship, right? Like, let's get a fight night or two a month, a pay-per-view, and some breathing room to let this stuff feel special. But this next month here is a very good start for the UFC in what is a pretty important run here as they go into TV contract negotiations and all of that. Well, we have some very, very interesting fights coming up here in 2025. Let's finish this one off today with another dive back into the world of professional wrestling, as it is AEW Dynamite. They've put a big thing on a colossal collision-y something or other. I forget what it is. But it's one of the ones that they kind of market as a pay-per-view. So let's take a look. A lot of the attention in the wrestling world has been on the WWE on Netflix, and AEW trying to wrestle some of that attention away with loaded up Dynamite and Collision over the next little bit. So let's look at what they have planned for AEW Dynamite. Title fight with Jon Moxley taking on Powerhouse Hobbs. This feels a little quick to me, to be perfectly honest with you. Obviously, I know with what Copeland is doing right now, the Rated R Cope or whatever we're calling him, that is the kind of bigger overall story. And so I don't mind building that as the bigger thing. But Powerhouse Hobbs, he won the Casino Gauntlet, right? Like that's how he's getting this one. I feel like that should have bigger stakes than you get a title shot on a bigger Dynamite, but a Dynamite still in a match that no one really believes you're going to win. Like that doesn't really feel like you are elevating. Not that like the Casino Gauntlet, I think, is a really cool idea that they have. And they're doing another one here on the women's side. I think it's a very interesting take on a very popular concept, and one that I think can be a real moneymaker for AEW. But they seem to throw it out at random times, and like the winner here, you get a title shot in a couple of weeks on a big Dynamite. This isn't elevating. No one's believing Powerhouse Hobbs is winning this, and so I feel like it takes away from the concept itself. But it gives us a very intriguing fight, a very intriguing match, and I think you got a couple of guys in Hobbs and Cage who are getting a well-deserved spotlight and a well-deserved look at the top when there is a lot of criticism around AEW on, okay, so we got Moxley, we got Christian Cage, and we got Adam Copeland at the top of this card, or at the top of the title picture right now. Cool. Way to be the alternative here. And so they're giving some of these younger stars or less established stars some opportunities to shine here. And so very interested to see what this match looks like. But Hobbs, I think, has a ton of potential. And so while I don't anticipate him winning, I would like to see him stick around in the title picture for a while. Brian Cage against Kenny Omega. These two are going to have a phenomenal match. And I think that this is going to be a good showcase for Brian Cage. And I think that we are already seeing Kenny Omega presented in the way that he needs to, where you just put him out there and it's like, hey, this is the best wrestler in the world. We have something those other guys don't. This guy. And so that needs to be, I think one of the things coming out of this is like the best bout machine is back. And I think that needs to be kind of a focus for AEW in general. A lot of the talk in WWE, around WWE, obviously, like Netflix, big deal, all that stuff. And look, I Googled AEW before the stream today to see what, like, let's see what's on the card, let's see what's scheduled, and let's do this preview here. And you Google AEW, and it's former AEW star goes to WWE. AEW ratings are this. There's not a whole lot of positive on those headlines right now. I think that there is a way to kind of take advantage of where WWE is at. Yes, they have all this momentum because of Netflix and The Rock, and it's all these different things that they got going on. But a lot of the buzz was, hey, these shows kind of dragged a little bit. If you can get back to Dynamite being fast-paced, 2 hours, oh my god, why am I even bothering taking notes? Because I'm just having to type at 1,000,000 miles a minute, but it's wrestling. It's the best wrestling you have seen. It is pay-per-view caliber match after pay-per-view caliber match, and we are going to just absolutely blow you away with this fast-paced, exciting 2-hour wrestling show. This is what professional wrestling should look like. I think they have an opportunity to be the alternative again with the way that WWE has paced their shows and with what Dynamite can be. We finally get Christian Cage taking on Hook. I think that this is kind of dragged a little bit. So I'm excited to see a bit of a next look at this. But Christian having that briefcase thing and the cash in, like it has breathed a bit of life into this character, but again, no one believes that he's going to win the championship with this, and no one really is taking it seriously, and so it again just kind of feels like a bit of a waste of what was a big moment at a big show at Wembley Stadium. You have Private Party and Mark Briscoe against the Hurt Syndicate. I've loved what the Hurt Syndicate has been so far, and so and Private Party, a good win for the title, but since then it has very much cooled off. I wonder if the Hurt Syndicate just kind of bulldozes through here. They get the titles, and again, a bit more life into the tag team division. And then, for the first time, we have a women's Casino Gauntlet match to see who will be a challenger for Mariah May. They took Toni Storm out of it, saying like she's just not ready in this character thing, which, by the way, I think it's an interesting take on kind of the amnesia story that we've seen in television before. I think it's an interesting way to go about building that, but I don't really know. They don't really have a challenger who feels like she is on the cusp of something. Like this could be a Mina Shirakawa coming in and picking up that type of a dub, and getting back into the title picture that way. Like they've already done the Thunder Rosa thing. Maybe it's a Sasha Banks and Mercedes Moné, and there's a belt collector thing that way, and you do that. But I think that this is a way to elevate someone into that main event picture on the women's side, and nothing that they have done there has been overly sticky. And that is another thing with AEW, where like we've put young performers in the main event before, but none of them feel like they are locked into the title picture. It's just, well, they were in the main event this month and now they're off, but they were main eventers before. And I know I said with the Jey Uso thing that the best way to make someone feel like a main eventer is to put them in the main event. But with Jey and with a few of the guys who they did this with in the WWE, they at least stayed there, right? Like we've had, okay, well, it's time for all these guys to get these title opportunities, and okay, well, and now they're back down in the middle of the card. The title pushes and the main event pushes need to be sticky for the performers who aren't former WWE people. So I think people would lose their mind over a Statlander one. I would hesitate with that because you have a performer who the story right now is she can't beat the TBS champion. So she gets a world title shot. That it feels very, very AEW, but it doesn't feel like it would make sense. I would like a Willow comeback, or maybe there's someone who I'm not necessarily thinking of, but this might be a way to get Jamie Hayter boosted back up. Although her rivalry with Julia Hart right now maybe takes away from that. So there isn't an obvious one that I can think of off the top of my head, but I am hoping that this allows them to really kind of reestablish the main event picture on the women's side that has been a little bit murky for a while. That is going to do it for everything here today. This was, again, for the live stream people, this was another long one. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me here today. As always, the show presented by Sea of Dead. Check out seaofdead403.ca for some great Calgary swag. Fueled by Swift Energy. SwiftEnergy.gg. Use the code PKPrimetime to get 25% off. The next stream coming at y'all tomorrow. My plan was 9 a.m. That might get interrupted. I might have to have some kind of a meeting. So keep it locked on my social medias for all of that. At Primetime Klein. Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, and all the threads as well. Check me out on all of those. And of course, listen to the podcast, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon, and just anywhere you get your pods. Your guys' support means the world to me. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. And I'll talk to all of you later. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.